Welcome everyone to the 2018 Preschool Mindfulness Summit. I'm really happy to introduce our next guest. Our guest is Gary Green. He's a mindfulness teacher and he's an author of several books. He has written The Mindful Lifestyle, In the Pursuit of Joy, and he also has a trilogy that he's written for children that incorporates mindfulness techniques into the books, and those books are for a bit older children, for 8 and above, but he's going to give the parents and teachers some tips today on bringing mindfulness into their own lives. So welcome, Gary. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So let's start with why mindfulness can help people. So the parents and teachers, we often get overwhelmed with all the things there are to do in life and get so busy. So what can mindfulness do to help us with that feeling of overwhelm?
Well, that feeling of being overwhelmed, I think, is basically it's a reaction to the stress of the situation. And if your children, or if your teacher and your students are having problems, that can be pretty frustrating. So a regular practice of a deep relaxation type mindfulness practice can trigger what's called the relaxation response, which your brain waves change and your metabolism slows down, and it basically is the opposite of the stress triggered fight or flight response.
Yeah.
And so if you can find 1 or 2 points during every day to do this deep relaxation thing, the effects can be cumulative, so that one of the first things that I noticed when I first started is that my sleep improved dramatically,
Right.
which then makes you better able to deal with situations, and then along with that, your ability to concentrate, because in a mindfulness practice, you're focusing on the present moment, and so dealing with a situation, you need to be fully present in that moment to make better decisions.
Right. Yeah.
And additionally, there are some other concepts that go along with mindfulness, like being non-judgmental and acceptance and that kind of thing, that it really can help people get a better perspective on what's going on that is causing the frustration. Sometimes if you can let go of your judgmental thoughts, the frustration, the feeling of being overwhelmed just kind of goes away.
Right. Acceptance, yes. Or judging, yes.
Yeah.
I know for myself also, that's made a huge difference in my own life, being able to just accept, what you're feeling at the moment.
Yeah, it's, and people get the wrong idea sometimes about acceptance, that it means that, say there's a situation that you don't like, and then, well, I just accept that, so it means you're not going to do anything, try to change it or whatever.
Right.
That's not it. Acceptance is awareness without judgment.
Right. Yeah.
And so if you can take that judgment piece out of there, then you can better deal with the situation that was frustrating you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's there's a lot of misconceptions about mindfulness, like you just mentioned, and the next thing I was going to ask you is, that some people think it's just meditation, or they think they just have to sit and erase all the thoughts in their heads, or which is pretty much impossible. But so can you just give us some idea of what mindfulness means to you, and what different types of mindfulness practices there are?
Sure. Mindfulness is basically being fully in the present moment without judgment.
Yeah.
So, and some people have kind of categorized 3 broad categories of mindfulness practice. So there's, excuse me a minute.
Yeah. I have some water too.
Kind of dry in my house today.
Mm-hmm.
There's participation, which is doing something. So I recently had my mother's piano restored to its original fabulousness, and so I've been trying to teach myself to play it. So
Right.
when I'm playing it, I'm directing my attention to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So playing a musical instrument is one good example of a participation type. I haven't heard the term for a long time, but yeah, I prefer to not use the word focus because um, it implies more effort than I think you should be using.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, when I was teaching mindfulness, because I was the director of a facility for mentally ill adults, and so we had this daily mindfulness practice, and sometimes I'd see those guys and they'd have their eyes just
Right.
they're working
Mindful,
hard
be
in
mindful.
there. And that sort of counteracts the whole relaxation part of it. So
Right.
you gently direct your attention back to whatever your current practice happens to be. If it's playing a piano,
Right.
I used to hear this term runner's high, or
Yes.
people, if you're directing your attention to the running, to the physical act of what you're doing. When I was a kid growing up on the farm, there was a lot of shoveling of things.
Right.
Shovel feed into the cows, and then we go on the other end and shovel that stuff. And I discovered that if I was, I was, through most of my teenage years, I was suffering from depression. And so if I was thinking about all the stuff that was wrong in my life, by the end of it, doing my chores, I just feel horrible. But if I was directing my attention to what I was doing, gently bring your attention back around when those other thoughts pop in. By the end of it, I felt a lot better and I got done quicker.
Right.
So then there's also the broad category of observation. One of the first practices that I recommend for people is counting your breath. That's kind of a hybrid sort of, because you're counting, but mostly you're observing your breath. So, you observe it, and then, as a practice, when your thoughts pop in, as they inevitably do, then you gently direct your attention back to what you're doing. And in the third broad category would be communication, which what we used to do at the facility was I would assign people to write a poem. And I say, the thing about poetry is there's no rules. You can put any string of words together. You call it a poem.
Right.
And that actually helps people. They're having troublesome feelings, let's say. They're finding the words to assign to that experience, and it sort of helps them sort things out.
Right. Okay. Yeah, interesting. So 3 broad categories. So you mentioned one of the easiest things is the counting of the breath. So do you have any other strategies that you would recommend for someone who's totally new to mindfulness and just wants to get started with some simple practices?
Well, where I started was I took a class in transcendental meditation. Now, the transcendental meditation people will tell you it's not mindfulness meditation, but you're directing your attention to one thing in the present moment without judgment. So
Right.
it is. and using a mantra is really easy. You can pick your own, and there's some research to indicate if you can pick a mantra, which is a short, a word or a short phrase, that if you pick one that has some spiritual meaning to you, more effective in achieving that relaxation response, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. The so I think a lot of people, well, I have a Facebook group, and some people have messaged me that are new to it, new to practicing. They want to help their kids practice it, or they want to practice it themselves, but they think that they need to read all these books and do a lot of maybe go on a course, and which all could be helpful, but actually what you're saying is, you can just start, right? Just start with a few moments every day.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I hear is, oh, I just don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time. Well, okay, fine. I don't know anybody that doesn't have 5 minutes.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
if you have the intent of setting aside that 5 minutes and you do it every day and you do it about the same time every day, you're going to start seeing some benefit. And
Right.
what I've kind of noticed is that when people start seeing some benefit, by which I mean, usually, like I said, the better sleep and improved concentration is pretty early on.
Right.
Then they start thinking, well, maybe there's something to this. So then they maybe go to 10 minutes a day,
Yeah. And isn't people can incorporate it into, like, if you're washing the dishes or you're having a
Right.
shower, things like that, right?
So, this is why I called my book The Mindful Lifestyle.
Yes.
Because
Yeah. About that.
if you go through each day with the intent of being fully in the present moment,
Yes.
things start to happen. You know, you,
Yeah.
you you become more effective at whatever it is you're trying to do because you're directing your attention there. And then if you incorporate that principle of being non-judgmental, what happens is you don't get as upset. I figured out. Um, I live out in the country. I'm about 100 miles from Minneapolis, and it's a pretty good sized city. And I don't like to go there because I hate driving there. So
Right.
uh, years back, and I was called upon in my job sometimes to go there for meetings and whatever. And geez, I just get all tense, and pretty soon I'd have a headache, and my stomach was all tight in knots and stuff. And then it came to me one day, well, you're not you're not following your own advice here. Turn
Right.
it into a mindfulness practice. And
Yeah.
um, I was doing the mindfulness practice of driving. And so as I'm driving and people are cutting me off in traffic, I'd say to myself, well, there's something you don't see every day. Let go of that judgmental thought. Because,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stupid stuff that happens on the road. And if
Yeah.
you take that all internal, pretty soon you'll be like I was, all
Yeah.
tight in knots. But letting go of those judgmental thoughts, by the time I got to where I was going, I was actually relaxed and in a pretty good mood. So
Right.
that's the kind of thing that if you go through the day,
Yeah.
um, when I was working as the director of the mental health facility,
Yes.
um, I had a lot of dealings with people that had, let's just call them maladaptive behaviors.
Okay.
And if you're judgmental when you're dealing with it, um, usually don't get anywhere because people pick up on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but if I see somebody doing something bizarre and I want to talk to them about it, and in my mind, I'd say, well, there's something you don't see every day. And
Yeah. Okay. Right.
people were more open to,
Yeah. To discuss it. Yeah.
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 So I guess
So
to get back to your question, uh,
yeah.
yeah, I think over and above the 5 minutes of deep relaxation if you just approach your day with the intent. And you're going to forget, throughout the day, but if you have the intent of doing it, you'll remember often and direct your attention back to that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you about, so if you have the intent, and I want to ask you about technology, because I know when I started, I would just forget to be I had the intent when I woke up in the morning, and then I would be like at night, oh no, I forgot to do it, So I know there's a lot of technology that can help to remind you, like ring bells that can ring and things like that. And there's a lot of apps that are useful. I think they're useful on you can download for free or pay a small fee for. But then on the other hand, technology is so distracting to our lives nowadays. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on whether it would be.
As far as the technology kind of being distracting, I don't know that it's the technology per se. It's our kind of Western emphasis on achievement and the materialistic. I got to go out there and, I think Americans are probably the most guilty because we think we have to work all the time. Thank you for our Puritan ancestors for handing that down to us. And so, the technology just sort of adds a little fuel to the fire of, I have to do all these things, and there's this little judgmental thing in the back of your mind that says, I'm a bad person if I don't work 50, 60 hours a week and so forth. And the technology adds to that, and then, you kind of come home from your job all numb and everything because, a lot of people aren't happy in their jobs. I'll just say that. So then, you don't want to interact with people and so forth. So turn on the TV or grab the computer and get on Facebook, where you can be whoever you want.
Yeah, that's true.
But again, there are a lot of good things with technology. Even years ago, I had a couple of let's call them meditation tapes. And one was just kind of like some monks chanting and stuff, but you listen to it, and that's also a really easy way to get into that relaxation response, provided you are an observation type mindfulness practice. So you're listening and thoughts pop in and you notice them and let them go, and so that's a good thing. So
yeah, it's a balance, isn't it? It's how you use it, right? Yeah. So you've told us, and because you worked in this facility, you must have dealt with so many different types of people and patients, and then through your book. So what you've mentioned, like better sleep and feeling more relaxed. What are some of the other benefits that you've seen of practicing mindfulness for different people?
I guess I can use myself as an example.
Okay.
See, my first book is about my recovery from being a depressed alcoholic. So mindfulness practice was a essential part of my recovery.
Yeah.
And so when I first started doing the transcendental meditation, my sleep improved dramatically because depressed people either have trouble sleeping or they sleep too much, and I was the have trouble sleeping kind. So, so that was like within a couple of days of starting the regular deep relaxation.
Yeah.
I was good at the sleep front, which then left me more rested, like I said earlier, to deal with things. Well, my concept of recovery is that when people get sick, you get kind of stuck in the growth process that everyone has to go through throughout your lifestyle. Yeah. So everyone's on this, call it the mental health continuum, and you're growing throughout your life. The mindfulness practice can help anyone to move along that mental health continuum to making better decisions and feeling better about the decisions that you make. And I made the kind of bold contention that joy is the default state of the human mind, which I think it is. Now when I meditate, I always have this big stupid grin on my face because it's like I'm connected to everything and it's good. So the thing that interferes with feeling joy is all the crap that the world throws at us. And if you are better able to deal with that, you're just going to be happier.
Yes, that's the key, isn't it? Yeah. So we're coming to near the end of the interview. So I just wanted to ask you if you have any last tips or strategies or information that you'd like to share. I know our viewers can order your book, which has lots of different ways to incorporate mindfulness into your life. But we'll have the link for that on the speaker info page and your website.
Sure.
People can get in touch with you as well.
Well, there's a couple of things. One of the things that I think naturally happens as people progress in their mindfulness practice and move along this mental health continuum is you become a more compassionate person, which means suffering with. And so you see people that are suffering and you feel that. And that can move you to do something about it.
Right.
And I think another thing that happens to people as you progress and move along this continuum is a sense of gratitude. My house burned down on April 10th of this last year.
That's awful.
Yeah, it was. See, now that's a common reaction, but it's also a judgmental thought. And so while I was standing in my yard under a spruce tree watching my house burn down, there's about 40 firemen around. It was a big house. I was having those judgmental thoughts. I built a lot of that house with my own hands. So, but then I was thinking, well, I got good insurance, and I'll just keep from really feeling bad. I'm going to just direct my attention to the present moment.
Right.
And it helped. I mean, several people that, because people show up at a fire, but several people remarked to me that, well, you seem like you're taking it well. And I'm like, well, yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
But letting go of that judgmental thing is really important.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a big piece of the puzzle, and a lot of people put so much pressure on themselves by just kind of having those thoughts, and then talking to themselves in a negative way about it, and then it
which reminds me, one final thought is be kind to yourself and don't be judgmental about yourself. My running gag in the mindfulness class when I get to this part is let go of the judgmental thoughts you have about yourself for having judgmental thoughts.
Right.
Everyone has them.
Yes.
We're hardwired to have them.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Gary, for sharing so much practical information and insight for our parents and teachers and other educators that are on the summit. I'm sure is going to be very helpful, and there was lots of takeaways there. Thank you once again for joining us.
And thanks for having me.
Thank you.